I don't think I have that level of faith. But we look at these characters in the hall of faith out of Hebrews 11, and it's sometimes hard to relate to them. Today we're looking at a guy, though, that I can relate to really easily. We're looking at Moses. Moses is this hero of faith. We're going to look at his story. So if you have a Bible, you can open it to Exodus chapter 3. We're going to get there eventually. But Moses is the guy who struggled with this perfect tool for the job mentality, just like I do. And if you don't know the story of Moses, let me fill you in on some of the backstory that we're going to get to here in Exodus chapter 3. The Israelite nation, the Hebrew nation, moved into Egypt. And they were kind of like a nation living within the borders of Egypt. And over years and years and years, they grew. They were prosperous. God was blessing them. And it got to the point where the Egyptians started getting intimidated by the Hebrews. And so Pharaoh decided, we're going to enslave the Hebrew nation, to oppress them, to keep them under control. And so that's what they do. But the more and more they oppressed the Hebrews, the more and more they grew. God kept blessing this Israelite nation, so much so that Pharaoh is like terrified of the Hebrew nation because they're so big. And so Pharaoh goes to extreme lengths, and he goes to genocidal killing, right? If you're familiar with this story, you know that at one point Pharaoh decides, okay, this is how we're going to control the Hebrew population. Every Hebrew baby boy that is born, we are going to kill. Throw it into the Nile. In an attempt to control the population. And that is when Moses is born, into this time period where all Hebrew baby boys are supposed to be killed. And so Moses' parents, if you don't know the story, Moses' parents hide him for 3 months, for as long as they can. And it gets to a point where they can't hide him any longer, and so his mom takes him and puts him in a basket and puts him on the bank of the Nile and kind of leaves him and hopes for the best, because she has no other option. And then, who comes along but Pharaoh's daughter, the princess of Egypt. She picks him up out of the basket, knowing full well he's a Hebrew boy. And she says, I want to keep him. And by a fluky turn of events that only God could orchestrate, Moses actually ends up growing up with his mom, biological mom, being raised by her for a while, and then he goes to live in Pharaoh's palace as a Hebrew boy, as a child of the princess of Egypt. And then eventually he grows up, and fast forwards a little bit. This is all within one chapter of Exodus, so you can go read it. But he sees an Egyptian slave driver beating a Hebrew one day. And he gets angry because he knows he's a Hebrew, even though he's living as an Egyptian. And so he kills this Egyptian slave driver. Word gets out about this, Pharaoh gets really angry, and so now Moses is terrified of being killed. So he flees the country. He's now a refugee. He's running away from Pharaoh's anger. And he goes to a foreign land, he meets these girls and this dad and this whole kind of migrant community, and he marries one of these daughters and has some kids and becomes a shepherd, and that's where we pick up the story. Because up until this point, God hadn't really been in the picture yet. I mean, he had been pulling the strings behind Moses, but he hadn't explicitly showed up yet. And now it is at this time in Moses' life, he is a shepherd in a foreign land, running away from Pharaoh's anger, and God shows up. And so we're going to pick up in Exodus chapter 3. I'm going to start in verse 1. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mount of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames from a fire within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. The home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. It's a burning bush encounter. This is an iconic scene in Scripture. We all kind of know this scene. And you would imagine Moses being a hero of faith. Moses, the guy who gave us the first 5 books of the Old Testament. His response to this dramatic encounter with God would be, finally, right? Finally, yes, let's go. Right? I mean, his nation has been enslaved for 400 years. And finally God is showing up and he's saying, I've heard, and now is the time. I'm pulling them out. And you would think Moses, being the Moses that we know, would say, finally, it's about time, let's go. What does he say? Verse 11. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? It's the perfect tool of God. He looks at God. He looks at this burning bush, the angel of the Lord, and he says, I don't think I'm the right guy for that job. And it's interesting, God doesn't even really respond to his excuse. God says, verse 12, I will be with you. He doesn't say, well, this is who you are. He says, I'll be with you. But Moses has a serious self-esteem problem. He is not the perfect tool for this job, and so he's going to try and convince God that he's not the perfect tool for this job. And so he has one of the most daring conversations that any human being has ever had with God in front of this burning bush. Let's look at what he says next. He says, first off, who am I? I'm not the right guy. And then verse 13, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? The excuse of, I don't know you well enough. I don't even know your name, God. And then God, in this iconic verse, right, he says, I am who I am. Right? The name of God. And then that's not good enough for Moses. So Moses in chapter 4 says, what if they don't believe me? Or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you. So then God says, okay, fine. I'll give you some signs to perform. Throw the staff down. Pick it up. Oh, it's a snake. Put your hand in your coat. Take it out. Oh, it's leprosy. Put it back. Oh, you're healed. They'll believe you. So Moses says, okay. What about verse 10? Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. I'm the wrong tool for this job, God. Even though, I've got a snake staff and I've got a leprosy hand and I know your name and you're going to be with me, I can't speak well. And God is getting a little frustrated at this point. He says, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. You can see this. God is like, come on, you idiot. Let's go. And Moses is like, but. And finally, Moses has run out of excuses. But he's still, as stubborn as a mule, will not go. He says in verse 13, probably one of the most bold things someone has ever said to the face of God. He says, pardon your servant, Lord. Please send somebody else. And then God gets angry. It says the Lord's anger burned against Moses. And he said, you're going, whether you like it or not. And Moses says, okay. Because that's all you can say when God gets angry. Moses, this hero of faith, gives God a list of excuses when God explicitly calls him. He says, I'm a nobody. I don't even know you well enough. I can't perform any miraculous signs. I can't speak good. Send somebody else. He's saying, I am not the tool for this job, God. You picked the wrong shepherd. Maybe I can leave and another shepherd will walk by this cave in 10 minutes and you can send him. But he's got this perfect tool mentality in his mind. And here's the thing. Moses goes, right? If you know the rest of the story, he shows up and it doesn't go well. And things get rough, right? To the point where Moses thinks he almost made a mistake going. And here's the thing. I act like Moses most of the time when God calls me to do something. Go talk to that person. When he gives me a nudge, go do this. I'm like, but God, who am I? I don't know you well enough to do that. I can't do anything miraculous. Somebody else has got to be better cut out for that job. I am not the perfect tool for that job. And I can look at Moses at the burning bush and I'm like, man, what an idiot. And then I turn around and give God an even longer list of excuses. And the only reason I don't go is because God's not in my face angry saying, you're doing this. But I act just like Moses. Because I'm not the perfect tool for the job. Here's the thing. I think most of us have a lower opinion of ourselves than God has of you. Let me say that again. Most of us think of ourselves lower than what God thinks of you. God comes and he says, hey, you can do this. I want you to do this. I'm calling you to do this. And I've equipped you to do this. And we say, no, you're wrong. No, I'm not good enough. No, I don't speak well enough. No, I'm not outgoing enough. I'm not religious enough. I don't know you well enough to do that, God. And God says, yes, you do. You're good enough. And it's because I'm with you. It's not about you, right? But we get so focused on ourselves. I get so focused on my own shortcomings, on my own flaws, on my own mistakes, on my own defects, then I disqualify myself for every single thing that God nudges me to do. Every little thing. And I see myself reflected in Moses. If I had been in that burning bush, I probably would have had the same conversation that Moses did. You see, Moses didn't start out as a hero of faith. He started out like you and me. He became a hero of faith. He learned that focusing on God is all it takes. It's not about being the perfect tool for the job, because here's the thing, you'll never be the perfect tool for the job. And I don't think there is even a perfect tool out there for this job. But God is calling us to do things, and we act like Moses. It's almost like we put a glass ceiling on our faith. Where, look, God, I want to follow you. I'm a Christian. I'm committed, God. But this is as far as I can rise. I can come up to here. This is my comfort zone. This is what I am cut out to do. I'm talented enough to do this. I'm comfortable doing this. I can do this. And then God comes along and he says, I want you to come up here. And we say, God, that's above my skill. That's above my ability. I can't do that. I can do this, but I can't do that. And God says, come up here. I'll be with you. It will be fine. And we go, but God, if I go up there, I might fail. And then what will people think about me? If I go up there, that's outside my comfort zone. That's something I've never done before. That's somewhere I've never been before. And God says, I'll be with you. But come up here. Stop limiting yourself because you're better than that. You may not think so. You may not realize it, but you're better than that. But I'd say, I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. I'm going to do the things that I've normally done. And if you want me to do that all day long, I can do that all day long. Don't call me to come up here, God. And here's the thing. God changed the world through Moses. God changed the world through Moses. Because Moses was forced to come up here. God is calling every single one of us to come up here. He wants to change the world through us in the exact same way He changed it through Moses. But we limit what God does in our lives because we are not willing to go here. Because I am focused on myself, on my own shortcomings. I am not the perfect tool for this job, God. So don't call me to do it. In the third Indiana Jones movie, The Last Crusade. If you haven't seen it already, I'm sorry. I'm going to spoil it for you. It's been out for decades, though, so too bad. They're searching for the Holy Grail. And it's at the end of the movie. And there's these series of challenges that you have to go through to get to the Holy Grail, right? You remember this? And nobody can even get past the first challenge. Everybody gets decapitated, okay? And Indiana Jones is there with his father, and there's these terrible bad guys there. And what happens? His dad gets shot, right? His dad gets shot in the stomach by one of the bad guys because the bad guys want to force Indiana Jones to go get the Holy Grail for them. And so his dad gets shot in the stomach. He is lying there, bleeding out, dying. And so Indiana Jones goes to get this Holy Grail to save his dad. And he makes it through the first two challenges. You got to spell God's name on the floor, which ironically doesn't seem that hard, but he makes it through, right? And then he gets to the leap of faith. And it's this, giant chasm. Like no one can jump across this. And he goes, it's a leap of faith. And in the movie, it cuts back to his dad, and his dad's like, "You've got to believe, boy." That's terrible Sean Connery accent. But you got to believe, right? And he's like from the lines, and he is not a religious guy, right? He's all about science, archaeology, facts. But here he is having to take a leap of faith, and he does it. He succeeds. He goes across. And he meets that really dusty knight, right? And he gets the Holy Grail, and he comes back and he saves his dad. The thing about that whole movie is that he could never have done that if he was trying to do it for selfish ambition. If he was trying to do it just for glory. The only way he was able to succeed and make that jump of faith is because he was focused on his dad, not on himself. He was focused on his dad. And that allowed him, enabled him, empowered him to live out a faith that he never had before. You see, we're so focused on ourselves most of the time. When God comes knocking, we get out the list of shortcomings, right? Like, well, God, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this, and I'm not good enough at this, and I'm a loser. Don't call me to do anything. And God says, you're focused on the wrong person. God wants to change the world through you, but the only way that we're going to do that is if we're focused on our dad, not on ourselves. We've got to be focused on our dad. Because he's the one that's orchestrating all of it. The only difference between heroes of faith and the rest of us is that it's nothing about who they are, it's about who they're focused on. It's about people that have been able to get their list of shortcomings out of the way, set that aside and say, God, I am terrified, but because I trust in you, I'm going. That's what we see in every single Heroes of Faith journey. We see it throughout all of Scripture. More explicitly with Peter and Jesus, right? Peter gets out of the boat. And things are going good when what? He's focused on Jesus. When he's focused on Jesus, he's walking on water. He's doing the impossible. Now that's not because Peter was some high and mighty awesome guy. It's because he was focused on Christ. As soon as he starts focusing on the problems or on himself, he starts to sink. And Jesus comes right there and he's like, why did you doubt? Just look at me. And I'm going to change the world through you. You're going to do impossible things because you're focused on the right person. Here's the thing. We are all chipped, broken, worn out tools. I am not the perfect tool for any job that God would call me to. But it's not about the tools. It's about whose hand is moving the tools. Because God is a talented enough craftsman to use broken, chipped, worn out tools to create masterpieces still. But God's workbench is filled with tools saying, don't use me, don't use me. I'm not good enough. And God's saying, shut up. Shut up. I've got something incredible planned and in store, and I want you to be an integral part of it, building my kingdom here in this world. So don't disqualify yourself from that. I've used worse tools than you. So let's get going. Moses' life is a poster of this. It is, I mean, look at how messed up Moses was. And yet he is one of the most foundational characters in the shaping of the Israelite nation. He's the guy that gives us the Ten Commandments. He's the guy that gives us the law. And he started out whining at the burning bush. Just like you and me. We're in the same shoes as Moses, and guess what? God has a similar path for every single one of us planned out to become a hero of faith. It's not about any one of us, though. It's about how we are focused on our dad. Because when we focus on God and on what he is able to do despite me, that is when we really start working in the kingdom. That is when he really starts moving in impossible ways through us and in our lives. Don't be like Moses at the burning bush. Don't be a chipped tool that says, God, you can't use me. Focus on God. Because when we do that, you can do the impossible. Nothing is out of reach. God wants to change the world through us. Broken, worn down, chipped tools. But we gotta let him. We gotta let him change us. We gotta let him use us in ways that we were never intended to be used. But he is able, he is willing, and he is calling. It's just up to us to say yes.